Today is Tuesday, October 1st. The Mets are playing playoff baseball today.
Shea Station, Jerry and Charlie. Shea Station, Jerry and Charlie. Riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your buttons. Now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Shea Station.
Welcome back to the Shea Station podcast. And what a week it was in Mets baseball. The last time that we chatted with you, the Mets had just finished taking 3 of 4 from the Philadelphia Phillies at home, an electric Sunday night performance, and they were headed to Atlanta needing a win to clinch the playoffs. Instead, they lost that game. They got rained out by a hurricane in the latter two, and then went on to Milwaukee where they fell flat on Friday and Saturday. David Peterson comes up with the biggest start of his career on Sunday to get us a season-saving win, taking us to yesterday's doubleheader where the Mets participated in arguably the greatest game of this entire season, in which they came out on top, clinching their first playoff berth in 2 years. Before we get into today's show, I don't do this often, but I have a feeling this is going to be a big show. If you watched yesterday's stream or checked out the highlights on our channel, if you've been watching the content, please subscribe to the Shea Station channel. We've seen insane growth over the past few days. We want to keep it going. We want to keep this playoff run going and bring you as much content as possible. If you're listening on podcast apps, leave us a review, leave us a rating, check out the YouTube, all that good stuff. Without further ado, Jerry, how you doing?
I'm lovely, man. What a day of baseball. It's just an absolute wild ride and a microcosm of what it's like to be a baseball fan, just the emotions that you went through, and B, what it's like to cover sports, like of your team that you root for, the heartbreak and just the ups and downs. I don't think when I was playing, I could like calm myself down, my heart rate. There were moments in yesterday's game where I was like, oh God, I think my heart rate won't slow down. I'm more nervous as a fan watching this game than I was ever as a player. I have no control as a fan. It's hard. But it was beautiful, I'll tell you that.
I mean, it's all worth it in the end, right? I mean, in the moment, you feel like you're going to die of agony. And you could see me die of agony live on camera.
I have to. So obviously, I haven't seen it. I've followed you guys on social media because, working and all. The rally candle, no idea what that is.
Boy.
I'll dive down that rabbit hole at some point. But I know that's the one thing that you guys can do that, like mainstream TV, mainstream media, the mainstream media can't do. They can't bring you the things that you guys bring. Yeah, the watch party. That's the kind of stuff where like that's a more community base feel, and I love what you guys do. Obviously, I'm a little bit different in that sense, but I will dive into that because I want to relive those moments from different perspectives. So really cool.
It's what makes it so special. I mean, shout out to Rob Shiraka, who set up the studio and made it look so great. He does a fantastic job. And then shout out to him for finding a lighter so that we could light this here candle. For those who don't know, and for those who didn't tune in, the Mets were down 3-0 in the 7th inning. We had this candle set up as part of the decorations for the stream. Rob found a lighter. We lit it. And then all of a sudden, the Mets were up 6-3. And a lot happened after that, of course. But the important thing is that the Mets came away with a victory in their House of Horrors against the team that seems to always conquer them in the biggest moments to clinch a playoff spot. And what a game it was, because there's so much to Game 161 that I think will get left in the dust. And that's what we're here for. We're here to clear the dust off the shelf and take you through the events as they were. The game started with Tyler McGill, I think, maybe pitching one of his best games of the year. I think the stat line is not going to be as pretty as you'd imagine it. He made a couple mistake pitches, gave up a couple home runs, but that was as confident as I've seen Tyler McGill since he was part of the no-hitter in 2022. He looked unafraid to throw strikes to a potent lineup. Fastball was touching 98 with regularity. Slider had some serious bite. He was a joy to watch yesterday for sure.
That was clutch, man. He really only made one mistake that got hit because Laureano's home run was a cutter down away.
Didn't think it was going.
You got to throw. You got to treat him like Javi Baez because he'll swing at pitches like a slider this far off the plate. But if it's close, he's going to get the bat to it. And I can't believe that was a home run. He's a strong man. But the backup slider to Albies was like the one.
Yeah.
But anyway, he pitched great though. Like you're right. Since he came back up and he found that sinker grip. I think the Mets. This is what they've been doing all year. I feel like they told him to just gas out, like give it everything. We're gonna have a quick hook because these are must-win games. So you're not going to be able to feel your way through 7 innings. Just give us everything you got, and then we'll take it from there. And he's been doing that, attacking. He's looked really good. I was very impressed with his demeanor. Like you said, he's confidence. It's again, the stat line isn't 7 shut, but he did everything you can ask for. Kept the Mets within striking distance. That was a very good job.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 1 out away from a quality start, and when you consider McGill as, he was the B option put in the game 1 scenario, I think you take that every day of the week. But unfortunately for him, the story of pitching in this game for a while was Spencer Schwellenbach, who once again made mincemeat of this Mets lineup. They had a couple opportunities in the 3rd and 5th inning. Harrison Bader came up short both times, and Schwellenbach ended up finishing 7 shutout innings. Got the 8th inning because he wasn't throwing a ton of pitches at all. He was working a ton of quick counts, throwing a ton of strikes. And then we had what I consider to be maybe the at-bat that potentially saved the Mets season, because who knows what happens if the Mets end up losing this game and go on to game 2 a little bit dejected. Tyrone Taylor, Spencer Schwellenbach is at maybe 81, 82 pitches at this point in the game. He's starting the 8th inning. Tyrone Taylor works him for a deep at-bat, 11 pitches, fouls off a ton of good pitches from Spencer Schwellenbach, who was absolutely dotting, and he ends the at-bat with a double in the gap, which not only gives the Mets a runner in scoring position, but knocks Schwellenbach out of the game, setting up the Mets lineup versus the Braves bullpen. And then we had one of those innings we've seen so many times this year where the team looks like they just flip an on switch and remember who they are. It was 5 hits in a row, double by Taylor, a double down the line by Alvarez, a pair of singles by Marte and Lindor, and then one down the line from Jose Iglesias against Raisel Iglesias, who's been spotless this entire season pretty much. The Mets storm back, they tie the game, they take the lead on a sac fly, and then Brandon Nimmo pours one into the right field seats for a 2-run homer, sticks the tongue out around the bases. Maybe the first time I've ever seen him pimp a home run in his near decade-long career. He took a look at that one, and he deserved it. And suddenly this team was up 6-3 in the 8th inning. What were your emotions in the studio at that moment as you watched that inning unfold?
I mean, Schwellenbach was unbelievably good yesterday.
He's a problem.
I mean, ace stuff, true, Cy Young candidate type stuff. And we've seen that. And our good friend Peter Moylan has been speaking his praises forever.
That's right.
He was locked in. And so when the 8th inning started, it's the first time in his career he's pitched into the 8th inning. He wasn't dotting the corners like he had been. I mean, this guy was precise, Maddox-like. Then all of a sudden, he's missing by a couple of inches, and that's just enough for Tyrone Taylor to work a count. He fouled off some balls that had they been in just a little bit more, up just a little bit more, it would have been a swing and miss stuff. But he puts together an absolute incredible at-bat to run Schwellenbach's pitch count up. So he got an 11 pitch, gets on base. Schwellenbach has to come out. Just a tremendous momentum shift, because even if they have Devin Williams coming out, you know what I mean? Raisel Iglesias, you've already seen the dominance of what Schwellenbach has been doing. When he's gone, you don't care who's out there because at least you have a chance now because he was so dominant. You're going to be like, hey, I might get one to hit now. It might be 100, but at least I have a chance. And that's kind of what happened. Taylor started it off, and then guys just started doing the things that it takes to get done. An absolute roller coaster. For Nimmo's home run, though, I think that it was the quick pitch because Raisel Iglesias started quick pitching him, almost balked, and I think it pissed Brandon off. And he was like, "Oh, you want to do that? I'll get ready." And he got ready and crushed that ball into right field. And I think it was like, "Yeah, you want to try to, it's not cheating, but it's a little bush league doing a slide step like that." Sure. And I said, Brandon's like, "Hey, you want to go there? Guess what? I'm gonna get you, boy." And he got him. Like it was that roller coaster. And then to put him up a 6-run spot in the 8th inning after being absolutely dominated through 7, just a huge momentum swing. But it was again this team doing things, Taylor, Lindor, Iglesias, setting guys up, moving, passing the baton, just clutch
team effort. It took everybody. It took everyone in the lineup contributing to make that inning happen. And even with that inning, that 6-run inning with 6 outs to go, most Mets fans like myself did not feel safe yet. There was no sense of pure comfort. There was joy for sure, but there was no sense of we got this, we're safe, we're going to win this game. Because the Mets tend to have interesting moments in scenarios like this, and they had one yesterday. Phil Maton comes on. He had been working a lot. I think he pitched twice in the Milwaukee series.
Third day in a
row, which is not something that happens very often in baseball now. It was more commonplace, a decade ago. Comes out. He's not sharp.
You just lump me into a decade ago. Okay. All right.
You were under Terry Collins. That's something he liked to do. I felt,
it was a decade
even
ago.
If I was young, I knew what those relievers were going through.
Got it.
I get
okay.
it. Bobby Parnell, there's case in point. Maton comes out. There's a check swing on a hit by pitch. It could have gone either way. It goes the Braves' way. He gets a fly ball out, lets up another single, and on comes Edwin Diaz for a 5-out save. And it's clear from the get-go that the slider is not there and the fastball location is off. Alvarez makes a great save on a spiked slider that could have been more trouble for the Mets, but in the end, it doesn't end up mattering. The Braves load the bases. Ozzie Albies, the guy who had initially done the damage to McGill, comes up, bases loaded, 2 outs, and rocks one to left field. A bases-clearing double. It gives the Braves back the lead, a 4-run inning for them immediately after a 6-run inning for the Mets. It felt like all hope was completely lost. And now you're talking about before the Mets were down 3-0, potentially dejected going into game 2. Who knows if they win that game? Now you had this game in your hands. You completely blew it. And now you're going into game 2 way more dejected than you were before when Schwellenbach was dicing you up. It's a completely different scenario. All hope felt completely lost. And if you want to see what that looks like, go check out the stream highlights. But the Mets come up in the top of the 9th inning. Starling Marte comes off the bench with 2 hits in this game. That's another story that I think is going to fall under wraps in this game. Came off the bench for Bader, got on twice in 2 big innings from the Mets. He gets a single here with 1 out. Mets are 2 outs away from disaster. I said on stream, does Francisco Lindor have one more big hit in him? And immediately after, he tattoos a Pierce Johnson curveball to right center field. Myself and Gary Cohen thought he got under it, and instead it sails over the fence for a go-ahead 2-run homer. One of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. I'm so lucky that I got to catch it on camera, and I get to watch myself react to that forever. This moment felt so much more sure of a victory than the 6th-run inning for me. I don't know why. It was just the response to adversity. But what a final regular season moment for one of the best Mets seasons I've ever seen from Francisco Lindor.
I mean, yeah, signature moment. One of the big home runs in franchise history.
Easy.
Yeah, I mean, it ranks up there. The one that I can think of. And again, my Mets fandom doesn't go farther back than most of our listeners and you even, I think of Mike Piazza's home run post 9/11. Yeah, I think of some of those big postseason home runs, but for regular season, I think it's that one and then this one.
And maybe Wilmer in there too, if you want to get emotional.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's up there.
Yeah.
So like those are the ones for me. I'm sure Gary Cohen will bring some others up, but I just I didn't think he got it either. I was watching his reaction. And then I watched Michael Harris's reaction and I was like, what? Just an absolutely superstar moment from your superstar in a superstar type atmosphere. I loved it for Mets fans. I loved it for Lindor, who seems to have really matured this year as far as he's always been a great player. Now I think he's a true leader, coming into his own at age 30, maturity. But for the game of baseball to be on an island yesterday, no other major sports going on that I can think of, national coverage, and the Mets are the team against the Braves. We've seen this kind of, chance for baseball to be beautiful, and they haven't taken it. This was a beautiful game.
The whole baseball world was watching, and the best player on our team came through in a moment that I think we all needed. But there were still outs to get in that game, and we saw Ryan Stanek warming up. I felt okay about that. And then apparently Edwin Diaz goes up to Carlos Mendoza and he says, I got this. I want this. And shades of Matt Harvey played in my head from that ninth inning in 2015. But this time we got a different ending. Edwin Diaz gets the first pitch pop out from Matt Olson. Runner gets on, immediately steals, because that's what happens when Edwin Diaz pitches, but a strikeout and a ground out from Travis d'Arnaud, our old friend. And just like that, the Mets win an instant classic 8-7. They punch their ticket to the playoffs. You got Mets players on the field fighting back tears and celebrating harder than I've ever seen them celebrate. Just a purely cathartic moment for the coaching staff, for the players, for the fans. After such a dreadful start and after being counted out by everybody, to come back and win in this way, to get your it's one way to win 5-0 and punch your ticket that way. To come back in this way against a team that seems to always have your number in these moments, who got your number in this very game, to win it that way, I think was one of the most beautiful sports moments I've ever seen.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so many narratives that come out of that.
Yeah.
First of all, if we go back to the game, that giving it up from Edwin Diaz shouldn't have even come about if he covers first base.
I know. Oh, we didn't even mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the fact that he didn't cover first base, that would have been out. 3 outs, still 3-0 lead.
Yeah.
He doesn't, and it shook him a little bit, and he took him a while to get back, and Albies punished him for it. It's one of those moments where you're like, is this going to define it? A mistake by one of our star players. We've been talking all season long about this team's going to go as far as Edwin Diaz allows them to go.
Right.
That felt like, all right, that's as far as we go a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
But the fact that he took the ball again for the ninth after they came back, the way he talked about it, the way that Mendoza was like, all right, you're our guy. If we're going to lose, if our season's going down, it's going down with the ball in your hand.
Yep.
Just lovely.
I mean, this team gets compared a lot to the 2019 team that hit the ball hard and harnessed magic late in the season. And that team didn't go as far as they could have because of their closer, because of Edwin Diaz's first year in New York, which was about as bad as it could get. And there were moments down the stretch here, the Corbin Carroll grand slam, the Jackson Merrill walk-off home run. Yesterday, Ozzy Alba's his bases clearing double. Those are moments you could have tagged to Edwin Diaz and said the Mets might have made the playoffs if not for their closer. And instead, he got an opportunity to redeem himself, which is so rare in this sport, a very cruel and unforgiving sport, a game of inches. He got an opportunity to win his honor back, and he did. And it was one of the most inspiring performances I've ever seen. Edwin Diaz crossing the 40 pitch mark in a regular season game is not something I ever thought I would see. And instead, he gets the job done. The Mets punch their ticket. I mean, this was very, very close, guys, to being a end of season podcast and very, very sad tones and silver linings and all that. And instead, the Mets are in a different city and they have a baseball game to play today because of the heroics of yesterday. There was also another game after it. Shout out Joey Lucchese, but I think a lot of us were just enjoying the ride and waiting for the celebration to happen after game 161.
I loved it for Edwin. Like it just, again, the Carlos Mendoza moment, allowing him to go back out, understanding he threw 26 pitches the night before. And he threw a lot in Philly. And then he comes out and gives it up and then goes out to throw 40. His glove spike when after, I mean, that's pure emotion. That's going to be a highlight because that to me tells you, I think we have some window washers going on here.
They're listening.
Do you hear it?
You have an audience. I don't hear it.
Yeah. But the glove spike for me is like a highlight of like, that's right.
Yep.
You know, like just pure letting it out, animalistic. It was awesome, man. Just a huge win. We can go over scenarios of if they lose that game, do they even win game 2? What could happen when, you know, whatever the case may be, that was a magical game and such a huge moment and everybody you needed to come through came through in a sense. Just an awesome performance.
Magical game for a magical team. They get to conquer their demons from 2 years ago, and they finally get to celebrate, which was a big thing I wanted as a fan in 2022. An 101 win team never got a proper champagne shower, and it really it bugged me. It has been bugging me for 2 calendar years, and to see, I was worried almost with the doubleheader and the start time today that they might not get the chance to do it, but I'm really happy to see that they went back into the clubhouse and celebrated what they accomplished this year because they deserve it, man. Regardless of what happens on this playoff run, to come back from where they were at the end of May and make the playoffs with a rookie manager and tons of new faces and tons of uncertainty in a year that was called a bridge year by the people who run the team is a remarkable achievement. Wildcard berth or not, it's a remarkable achievement for a remarkable team. And now the whole field is in front of them. You have nothing to lose. You're the 6th seed. No one thought you would be here. No one thought you would be here even on the last day of the season yesterday. There were doubts that you'd even make it. Now you're here. You got nothing to lose. I'm hoping this team can make some noise, but even if they don't, they should be really proud of themselves.
I agree. I sent it out in a tweet, but it's a lot of the fans I've run into have said that like this is, if not their favorite, definitely one of their favorite teams that they've rooted for, one of their favorite seasons, because they were down and out, and then they came together, and you know they've alluded in the recent years past about like, oh, we got good team chemistry. This is good team chemistry. This 2024 team pulling for each other, pushing each other, holding each other accountable. They're fun.
They're fun.
They're fun, and the Mets baseball hasn't been fun for a long time.
That's right.
And so the fans have embraced that and really allowed themselves to not worry too much overall because it's fun. They want to be involved in the fun aspect of it. And the fact that it almost ended yesterday would have been really sad. Give them another chance to enjoy this team, enjoy this season, and who knows what can happen.
That's right. Carlos Mendoza becomes the first rookie manager in Mets history to make the playoffs in his first season. Rookie manager meaning his first time managing a team ever, so Buck doesn't count by that property. 89 wins after 22 wins after May. It's a remarkable achievement. We've spoken praises about Mendoza all year long. For him to get this achievement, the way you saw him embrace the players and his coaches after the game, like really long, heartfelt hugs. You felt that emotion through the TV. Lindor fighting tears with Steve Gelbs after the game. It's really awesome. And I'm over the moon. I'm still not over it. I probably won't come down from the high until 5:30 today. when we have to play another baseball game. And I think, Jerry, it's about time we start to preview that series because it's here.
For it.
It's today. The Mets are going back to Milwaukee to play the Brewers, a team they literally just played this past weekend. Bit of a weird situation with this MLB playoff bracket and regular season, but play ball, boys. They got a 3-game set against Milwaukee, the 3 seed, the National League Central champions. They pretty much went pole to pole, winning that division. And in our matchups with this team this year, it hasn't exactly been pretty. We went 1-5. There's been fights. There's been hit by pitches. There's been dominant pitching performances. There's been asleep lineups for the Mets' hand. So hopefully the fortunes can turn a little bit with a little bit of magic on their side. But I think history does not matter to this team right now. I think they are going to be living on cloud 9 even throughout this game, knowing what they accomplished yesterday, and hopefully they can carry that steady momentum into today.
Yeah, man. Anything can happen. They're definitely rolling positively back into Milwaukee, a feeling that they didn't have this past weekend at the beginning. It took a breakout performance from David Peterson and then like guys putting it together. The Brewers owned the Mets this season, like Atlanta Braves owning the Mets level. I think them getting that win, that must-win game in Milwaukee last weekend before they went down and took another game from the Braves. I don't think the Braves win happens without them winning in in Milwaukee, because they unlocked something. They're like, oh yeah, they were playing so tight when they got to Atlanta the first time. They pretended they were trying to do the same thing at the end of the season that they were doing in the middle. Just relax, play baseball, don't worry about everything. But it took JD Martinez telling them to acknowledge the fact that this is big time.
Yeah.
Don't pretend that you're not playing in a huge moment, that this games are must win. Your brain knows it. Your body knows it. So don't pretend because it still sits there. Acknowledge it and then just enjoy it, because it's not very often you get to have a chance to go to the playoffs. So be a hero. Understand that heroics only come out of these really tough moments. So don't pretend like it's not a tough moment, because you're going to get pushed over. They embraced it. They exercised the demons in Milwaukee, carried that momentum over to Atlanta, hopefully carrying that momentum back into Milwaukee. I have a good feeling about this. There's some trouble with the bullpen. Edwin Diaz has to be down, I think, today.
Definitely.
I wouldn't be surprised, because you're never down until you go out and play catch before the game, see how your arm feels. I could see him talking his way back into it. I doubt it.
I don't know if that's a good idea.
I'm with you, but I can see him being like, hey, man, I'm out there.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that October's different, but, 45 pitches yesterday, I think 26 the day before.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that's crazy.
It's crazy, but he's got a rubber arm. Like, you know what I mean? He won't be out. He won't be down until he tells them he's down, which, I'm not going to bank on him saying that he's down. But Maton will be out. He pitched 3 days in a row probably. So there is that, because they played that doubleheader, but they feel good and feel confident. And I guarantee you they're going to be relaxed, or they should be relaxed and ready to win some ball games in Milwaukee.
Pressure is a privilege, and I think the Mets finally realized that over the past couple days. One guy who was definitely available and even got some extra stretching in yesterday, thinking that he might have been pitching Game 162, is tonight's starter, Luis Severino. The Mets winning Game 1 was not only massive for punching their postseason ticket, but also massive because now they have their ideal rotation setup locked in. It's going to be Severino, Minaya, and Quintana for these 3 games, who have all been on pretty great stretches ever since the beginning of September. For Severino, that's a guy that has pitched in big playoff games before for our team across town, the New York Yankees. His last start came a week ago against the Braves. It was that 4-inning game, 4 earned runs, a lot of soft contact, a couple errors. Just a lot of things didn't go his way that start. It was a tough way for his season to end. But on the year, we now have end-of-year stats, which is always really exciting for me. Luis Severino pitched 182 innings this year. I want to go back and listen to our like preview pods of the season and what we said about Severino, because I can guarantee you that I don't think either of us had him logging that many innings. 31 starts, Jerry.
Yeah, it's a
Pure value.
consistent out there. That's exactly what they needed. They thought they were going to get it in Jose Quintana.
Yeah.
They ended up getting it from Luis Severino, who at times will look like an ace. At times he looked like a pretty good pitcher. I want to see what he can do in a Mets uniform in the postseason. I'm excited. I think he's got that extra day of rest. Now he has 2 extra days rest. They would love to lean on him for extra innings, but this is the playoffs. Every run is magnified, obviously.
Yep, absolutely.
But I feel like it's lined up really well for them.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets don't really have a bulk option either because McGill obviously pitched yesterday, so he's not going to be available. So, yeah, you could see some length out of Severino, potentially, who's fully rested at this point. A lot of postseason games in his career. He started 10 playoff games. The numbers aren't exactly pretty. A lot of that is inflated by a couple blow-up starts, but just one quality start and 10 career playoff starts for Luis Severino. But new uniform, new page, new chapter in the book for him. And he's a bulldog, man. He's been the bulldog. He's the guy that I want on the mound in these high-pressure situations, the guy that has been there before. We talk a lot about this roster and how they employed some veterans with some pretty serious playoff experience, notably JD Martinez, who finally seems to be getting back to who he is with a couple nice days at the plate. He'll probably get the start tonight as well. Severino is one of those guys, in my opinion, too, and they're going to need a big-time outing from him today with this shorthanded bullpen. There's going to be no Edwin Diaz. I'd be shocked if he pitched. Phil Maton is probably an emergency option. McGill's not going to be there for length, so it's going to be Severino and then, some spare parts here.
Budo and Reed Garrett will be the guys.
Those are going to be your A guys there. So if you can get 5 or 6 out of Severino quality innings, I think you take that to the bank. But one step at a time, because there's a lot to evaluate in this game, including, our opponent, who we should learn a lot about. Notably, we watched them this weekend. They are frustrating to play. They don't beat you over the head with a lot of power and star talent. They're one of these teams that plays fundamental sound defense. They steal extra base hits all the time. We saw it this weekend with liners down the line and balls in the gap that their outfielders run down. They kill you that way, and they kill you with the bullpen. This is a team in the opposite situation of us right now, whereas we need a little bit of length from Severino tonight. If the Brewers get 3 innings out of Freddie Peralta, they're still going to be in the driver's seat because they have so many weapons in their bullpen. A bullpen that had the second best ERA of any team in baseball this year at 3.11, and their defense ranked 4th overall with 64 defensive runs saved. That is the Brewers' recipe for success. It's the reason they've made the playoffs in 6 of the last 7 years. The thing with this, and history can change all the time, the Brewers have lost 9 of their last 10 playoff games. They haven't won a playoff series since 2018. Just like the Mets do, the Brewers have the same monkey on their back right now. They were in this exact scenario last year. The 3-seed NL Central Division champions hosting the wildcard series, and they got beat by the Arizona Diamondbacks pretty convincingly, and that Diamondbacks team went on a nice little run after that. Obviously, a very different Brewers team than the one we saw last year. New faces of the team are on the squad this year. But one guy who did get a playoff start last year and got the loss, Freddie Peralta. He's getting the ball tonight, game 1, a guy that I was pretty infatuated with earlier this season. I made him my dark horse Cy Young pick. He had a nice year, not really Cy Young caliber, but he's still a pitcher to be respected nonetheless. He pitched 1 game against the Mets this year, 6 innings, 1 hit, 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts, and a W. That was earlier this season. And he's showing up with a pretty good postseason resume and some good numbers against Mets hitters. They have their work cut out for them tonight, but they also had their work cut out for them yesterday. So I'm still feeling pretty good about this series, but I got to imagine Brewers fans are feeling equally as confident as we are.
Yeah, man. As far as matchup goes, Freddie Peralta, he's got great stuff. There's a reason why you picked him as your dark horse. He's got a really good four-seamer, a very good slider, and a solid changeup, and he mixes in enough curveballs that that you keep him off balance. It's a lot similar to like a David Peterson kind of repertoire. But He's good. And then, but they'll go to their bullpen quick because this is their recipe. You nailed it. Their defense is spectacular. It may not be number one, but it may be the best defense I've ever seen like
Yeah.
this season. Um, they have an incredible bullpen. They have clutch hitting. These guys do the little things. Get a base hit here, get a base there. But the clutch hitting is a large part due because they run the hell out of some bases,
Oh,
man.
yeah. Oh,
They
yeah.
do the little things that might be overlooked by a high payroll team. They fill in those gaps with defense, bullpen, and speed on the base paths. And they got some superstar power on the rise coming. And Jackson Churio, a 20-year-old that's spectacular. Bryce Terang
Oh, yeah.
seems to be defense first, but he crushes the Mets. And they've got some storylines of Reese Hoskins, like a villain to the Mets fans on a couple of different teams now. He's been a villain for the Mets. It's going to be a fun series, man. These are two worthy teams that deserve to make the playoffs battling it out.
The storylines run rampant in this series. You can go back to the Hoskins situation, earlier this year, which, have your opinions on that. I still think the whole thing was kind of a big fiasco and didn't set up Mendoza very well, but it happened, and the Mets.
Correct. Yeah, that was on McNeil.
Yeah, they made a fool of themselves, honestly. But
Yeah.
it's been a long time since the beginning of April, and a lot of things have changed with this team. So you have the Hoskins narrative. You have the McGill Bowl. The closer for this team is Trevor McGill, who put together a awesome season.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and I mean, poor Mama McGill, because one of her sons is going home, whether it's Tyler or Trevor, but someone's going home.
She's hedging her bets.
I know. I wonder where her affinity really lies. I think we'll find out. I don't know. And she feels like a true New Yorker. We'll find out. But McGill, 21 saves on the year, 2.72 ERA, so good for him, a breakout season. And then biggest of all, it's the David Stearns Bowl. David Stearns, in his first playoff series, growing up as a Mets fan, now the GM of the Mets, will take on the team that he basically built up in the mid-2010s, the team that he returned to relevancy and established winning culture in and then departed from. He will face them first as a true potential conquering of the past for him. So a lot on the line here. You mentioned the rampant speed of the Milwaukee Brewers. They're the only team in baseball this year with 5 different players who stole at least 20 bases. Most notably there is, of course, Bryce Terang, who stole 50 freaking bases, if you can believe that. Yeah, man, they got weapons galore, not the household names you might expect, but plenty of talented players. Willie Adames in a contract year, his last ride potentially with the Milwaukee Brewers. I think a lot of people are probably betting on that. The ascension of Jackson Rio. Go ahead.
I'm going to bet that Adames is not a Brewer next year.
And I hate the whole small market thing because they could totally afford to pay him. They're just choosing not to, and that's a whole owner discussion.
The Cleveland Guardians and Jose Ramirez figured it out.
It's true. Pay cuts are possible, but Adames, 111 RBIs this year, 32 bombs. So,
And he plays really good shortstop, and he's 29.
Go get your bread.
He's a hell of a player.
Yeah. He's going to be one that potentially hurts you. But man, am I excited. There's several hours to go before we're there. But it feels totally different than when the Mets flew into Milwaukee 4 days ago. And I think that's kind of like, I want to depart with this because you had the crazy Phillies win on Sunday and the emotions were up. Everyone was feeling great. I was in that stadium. I felt how loud it was. I felt Citi Field shake. To go that high and then crash down below in Atlanta and in Milwaukee and then rise again yesterday. It's just this team is relentless with their ebbs and flows. They don't seem to be all that bothered by the major obstacles and hitches in the road. And I'm hoping that this time the roller coaster just keeps going up. No more downturns. I'm good on the ebbs and flows. I'm ready for the pure ascension.
Yeah, man. This is a special team. They've got a good mix of personalities and veterans and young guys stepping up.
All right, guys. Well, we apologize for a random kind of jagged moment in the podcast. Our entire desktop crashed just as we were about to end the episode. Luckily, nothing was lost as far as we know right now. So that's great news. So just
clutch.
a massive scare. But you know what? Isn't that kind of just the Mets in general? A massive scare before everything turns out to be all right. So, yeah, I think a fitting way to wrap up today's show.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I was just giving my final thoughts. Vibes are back to immaculate. I feel like they've got good momentum. Obviously, the Brewers are a very good team. We talked about both teams being worthy of this spot
Right.
in the playoffs. It should be a good battle, and I'm so looking forward to this baseball.
And I have one last thing before we wrap up today's show. The Mets haven't announced their roster officially yet. It'll probably be announced by the time this show comes out, so you'll have full clarity on this. And this will either be nothing or it'll be a decent storyline. Jesse Winker didn't play in the last 4 games. Apparently he had his back taped up yesterday. That's what Tim Healy just said on Twitter. And Eddie Alvarez is also ineligible for the postseason roster because he came up with us in the middle of September, not before it. The Mets need a left-handed hitter. Do you know who was in Atlanta celebrating with the team yesterday, Jerry?
Yeah, Brett Beatty was there.
Brett Beatty was there. There's a world where Brett Beatty's return to this team after a broken or sprained wrist and a whole season in AAA could be on their playoff roster. And that's something to just keep your eye out for.
Like a fun storyline possibility.
A team full of fun storylines. Maybe we have another one there. But that'll do it for this game 161, 162 recap and playoff preview. We're going to be back to talk a whole lot about Mets playoff baseball, and hopefully that train just keeps on running into next week and the week after, and who knows where it goes from there.
Who's on your jersey? Who's on your Mets jersey?
Well, Jerry, I mean, you referenced him in this very show, and the Detroit Tigers are magic right now.
It's beautiful. A little Javi Baez shout out.
Baez love. I remember 2021. We were in the trenches. Remember where you were, guys. We're up now. Okay?
We're up.
We're up, baby.
No more thumbs down. Just
no
thumbs
more
up.
thumbs down. All thumbs up. Wow. How far has Lindor come, huh? That's a good one.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's part of the beauty of this season where we've saw the maturation of not just the superstar on the field, but we've seen what he's capable of doing for future Mets teams as a leader. Lovely, man. I'm so excited for this series. This is going to be fun. I love playoff baseball. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, before you tune into the games, make sure you tune into SNY to see Jerry all suited up with the hair flowing. You want to give us a little hair look before we wrap up?
What do we got today?
We looked at this before the show. You know, I think get some height on that.
Yeah, you want me to?
We mentioned Doc Brown, as a reference there. I mean, it looks like you got shocked by lightning.
Yeah, this is what happens. It was a long day yesterday in the studio. Came home, came to my hotel room, took a shower, went straight to bed.
Absolutely.
This is the result of what it looks like when I wake up in the morning.
That's what I'm saying. Guys, Jerry doesn't just wake up and look like he does on TV. It takes a lot of work, okay? Respect the grind.
I mean, it looks like it doesn't take any work. The results probably aren't, professional, but it's what I got, and that's what we're dealing with.
Guys, we'll see you soon for another pod. Let's go Mets. Let's get some wins. Let's make some memories.
Enjoy this season. I hope it doesn't end unless they're holding up, a World Series trophy. But this has been a fun ride, man. Let's go Mets.
Jerry and Charlie, thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time. Where we'll be back.
Rally Candle. Shop.johnboymedia.com. Rally Candle shirts.
I'm going to watch that right now.
Station.